What's up, freaks and geeks? Welcome back to another episode of Region Free. See what I did there?
Freaks and geeks, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's both a callback and also a little bit of like an evolution of our old podcast. That's great. I love that.
I don't know what you're talking about there. This is the only podcast we've ever done, and it's episode 1 officially. The first time we're doing an episode 1, and maybe the last.
That's true.
We've got an absolute.
What, did you get a job? Did your job interview go that well that you got a job?
Funny. Look, I applied for a sort of a position on a remote mystical island. It was like, don't ask too many questions. There are a lot of NDAs and confidential proprietary information that we're not able to give you at this time. But we promise that we've kind of got a hustle-focused startup culture, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to explore here.
Wow, interesting. Congratulations on your hustle-focused future career.
Yeah, it was like soft skills not necessary. A lot of this is going to be learning on the job, getting you up to speed with the very interesting and particular opportunity that we've got.
I like to think all my skills are hard skills.
I like to think so too. Your skills on the guitar certainly are, because I've heard some of those heavy riffs.
That's right.
Folks, today we're talking about Horrors of Malformed Men, one of the Genesis movies for this podcast. One of the ones that we were like...
Is that right?
Yeah,
Is that true? I
bought this Blu-ray, I bought the beautiful Arrow Collector's Edition, Limited Edition Blu-ray with the Tom Mess, Mark Sharplin commentaries. And I bought it 18 months ago because we were like, you put me onto this one. You were like, this movie's kind of wild. I think you're going to really dig it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to watch that. We're going to talk about that on our podcast that we're going to do eventually. Here we are doing the podcast. I finally watched the movie, and guess what? Pretty wild.
It's kind of wild. It's a wild movie. You know what, actually? It's half wild. The first half is a pretty boring pulp mystery, and then the back half, it's what, were you nodding off? Because I'm about to assault your senses with sight and sound.
I don't want to dive right into it because there's a lot of interesting stuff to set up top. That was... the sales pitch for this movie is the ending, kind of even back half especially, is goes a little nuts, goes balls to the wall. I don't think I can fully say this confidently and with gusto, but stewing on it, thinking about it, I really liked the first half of this movie. I thought it was very funny slapstick sort of comedy. My favorite scene in the movie has nothing to do with any malformed men or body horror or really cool pyrotechnics or very neat
Is
colors.
It them two monks? Is it them two monks?
It's not the two monks. That's
okay.
maybe a runner up. We'll get to it when we get to it. But let's rewind. Let's take a big wheel as I'm gesturing and roll it back a little bit. This film is directed by, I want to make sure I pronounce it right, Teruo Ishii, a guy who I am not super familiar with.
Let me ask you a question, AJ.
Yes, sir.
How familiar are you with pink films?
Not very.
The essentially softcore porn.
I'm aware of what that meant, basically.
Okay.
So
he made a lot of those, which might answer a lot of questions about the directorial style of this film.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of nudity on top of everything else in this movie. It's one of those things where you can definitely tell that there were maybe some studio notes, or sort of part of the reason they got to make this movie was look, you have to put unclothed female human breasts on screen. At least I got to be honest, I was not keeping track with a calculator or a stopwatch. A not insignificant portion of this film has some...
Yeah, I think Sam Barlow got that same production note
on
Immortality. No, you know what? I think that would probably track. This is a bit off topic, but I find it pretty fascinating. At some point, and I think it was when they were doing the Nikatsu Roman porno pink films, they would... Effectively, production companies didn't really care what the movies were. So they would hire these directors and be like, you can literally make anything so long as it has a sex scene in it. And so you would get dudes like Hisayasu Sato, and even Kiyoshi Kurosawa actually got his start in pink films, but I don't know if he was directly involved with this stuff. They would make these balls to the wall pink, pinku softcore porn films that would be really, really fascinating and well made. And also it would have 2 sex scenes that were just sort of explicit. I don't think that was what was going on here, but also this dude was making some wild shit back in the day, which Arrow has released a lot of it at this point. Orgies of Edo,
Yeah.
and, Shogun of Torture, stuff like that.
A lot of his early works remain pretty inaccessible. One of the special features on the Blu-ray that I watched was like a festival sort of introduction he had done, like a retrospective screening. And they talked a lot about the Abashiri prison film series, which is like was this 16-part sort of pulp detective thing that he did not direct all of them, but it was like kind of had a moment. And that film, or at least most of them, seem pretty hard to track down at this point. Some other films this guy has made have titles like Screwed, the aforementioned Orgies of Edo, Inferno of Torture, Joy of Torture. So this is the guy we're dealing with.
He also did Blind Woman's Curse with Meiko Kaji, Lady Snowblood herself.
Yeah, that one has a sick poster, at least on Letterboxd. Very cool. But when you walk into one of these films, you can imagine you're probably going to get a little pulp exploitation, sort of grindhouse adjacent stuff. One of the things that really surprised me about this movie, both maybe it's just the restoration and the presentation, it's gorgeous for a film that came
beautiful.
out in 1969. Like, it has an incredible artistic direction, some really neat stylistic choices, like the costumes, all of the set dressing, the production design is just like it's a great film to look at. Maybe less so or more so than think about, digest, discern. The word inscrutable was used in this conversation at some point. Difficult film to scrute and sort through.
It is. I love to scrute. That's the thing you gotta know about me. Let me attempt.
Mr. Scroot Driver.
It is an adaptation of an Edogawa Ranpo story, who's like, I don't know, I don't want to overspeak, Japan's Arthur Conan Doyle, almost, like that caliber of like mystery writer.
Well, a fun bit of trivia is that his name is sort of a self-conscious spin on Edgar Allan Poe. That's where his pseudonym, his authorial name that he published under, was one of his direct inspirations. Arthur Conan Doyle, not far off, but he was definitely inspired by those guys who were like running down to the letterpress and being like, I got some hot new shit. The streets are going to want to hear this one.
That makes a lot more sense that he's like big into like Edgar Allan Poe. Maybe that exposes me for being not the most learned of us, most literary of us. But that does make a lot of sense.
Your shelves are all full of Gundam. No room for books.
That's right. Well, actually, there are a few Edogawa Ranpo stories over there.
Oh, really? Okay, so you're familiar.
Because Junji Ito has adapted a few of them. And in fact, one of the stories Junji Ito adapted is kind of like in this one, very briefly, which is a story about a chair that has a compartment in it that a person can hide in. That is like briefly alluded to in this within a like wider Ranpo story.
One of, there's a lot of wild stuff on the screen in this movie. One of the funniest bits, let's call it, is the reveal of the chair, what contains a man who can fondle people who sit on the chair. Yeah.
Also, a really funny little detail. We'll get to the character Goro Akechi here in a moment. Massive character in Japan, so much so that Persona 5 literally just took his name and dropped it in there. It was like, this is our detective character, Goro Akechi.
So, that's something I learned from the special features as well, but the exact actor who plays that character in this movie has played the character previously before, so there's I don't know, a soft franchise sort of thing going on. That's pretty cool.
Tell me about this movie, AJ.
Well,
I feel like I watched it under suboptimal conditions last night.
Oh no!
Let me set the scene for you. I went to Hilo Diner in Longfellow, Minneapolis.
Don't dox yourself.
I don't live in Longfellow.
Real-time assassination coordinates.
I'm not there currently. I went there last night with Alex Van Aken, and I ate about 3 of my body weight's worth in bread.
Oh, just bread.
And then
I thought you were going to tell me you had the meat
biscuits
sweats.
Biscuits and gravy, French fries, and then a giant mountain of donut. And then I came home and had to watch this movie after that. And I'd seen the movie before, so my brain was already not fully engaged. But gotta say, a lot of it washed over me. So I'm gonna need you to take the reins here on the synopsis.
Bad biscuits and gravy will get to you. One time,
it was a great biscuits and gravy.
Oh, okay, good. But I mean, like, they'll fuck your stomach up.
A lot, yeah.
the first time I ever had biscuits and gravy, this is a very short story.
Okay.
Went to church like an hour later because I was a good Catholic boy. My stomach was like not even twisting itself in knots, doing fucking precise surgery on itself. And I thought that God was punishing me for, I don't know, being a bad boy.
No,
And
here's the thing about
so
high-low
I
diners.
stray from biscuits and gravy these days.
Here's the thing about high-low diners biscuits and gravy. You think you're gonna get like 2 little biscuits with some gravy on top, and then you have your like sausage and egg on the side. But no. All of these are on top of each other, so you just get this massive gray, which after cutting in, you learn is like a biscuit the size of Wyoming, with about an Olympic swimming pool's amount of gravy on top. And then the egg is on top of all of that. So you're eating like basically what would be 4 disparate parts of a meal at any other restaurant, all in every single bite. And there's no way you go home and can watch Horrors of Malformed Men and not start to doze off for about 90 minutes.
Okay, watch this. Check this out. This is why I'm a professional. If the biscuit of this film is the works of Ranpo, the gravy is also the works of Ranpo, because this is sort of based on one specific short story, The Strange Tale of Panorama Island, I believe. But as you sort of hinted at earlier, there are lots of characters, instances, little fun bits that they just sort of plucked wholesale from other stories and dropped into the, you know, the gravy that they sprinkle on top of the bones of that structure, because
it's the ERCU, the Edogawa Ranpo Cinematic Universe.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the post-credit scene where Samuel L. Jackson shows up was really great here. About 40 years before he played the character, he wearing the eye patch and everything. It was pretty cool.
And probably about 10 years before he was born. No, that might not be true.
No, that man's like
69,
70 or 80. Yeah, he's alive. He's kicking. Well, I wonder if he saw this in theaters. Probably not, because this was hard to see in America for a number of reasons, most of which being it's kind of a perverted, freaky little Japanese horror movie, and those were not, believe it or not, the most widely seen. But they were sort of a key cultural export of this era, as you sort of alluded to earlier with the Pink Films backstory and setup. That's kind of how these things were getting made and why they were being circulated. So, you know, you could go to the Times Square movie theater at midnight, a la Taxi Driver, sit your little butt down and just watch some Horrors of Malformed Men, which kind of feels like
true.
Yeah, this like these sorts of movies. I was reading that, like, you know, Ishii especially, kind of his early stuff, whatever you want to call it, was seen as a fascination, and was like, you know, they weren't exporting the big art films as much as they were kind of just throwing these grindier exploitation style films out. Not like, you know, they weren't playing in multiplexes everywhere, but it was sort of a fascination.
I had always thought, like, you know, America had very much like a golden era of porn when like the X rating was sort of like legitimized, and you started getting like Caligula is a very famous example these days, or even like Deep Throat to a lesser extent. But like, I never really knew there was kind of a crossover between like what was coming out of Asia and what was happening in America at that point. I thought really we were only getting like the American, European, and like Italian stuff. You know?
Well, yeah, this is 1969 when like you are in the throes of the new Hollywood movement, probably about halfway through it essentially, and so like the production cycles just can't move that fast. Like Hollywood and traditional studio systems are struggling to like adapt to subversive kind of pushier stuff, and so a lot of the things, you know, European horror and exploitation films were coming in as well, but you know, Asian films made their way over here as well.
So cool.
Tarantino actually writes about this a lot in his new book, which I've been reading through. But you know, those are some like formative experiences for him. We're going back and finding films. You know, not this one's not named specifically, but in this vein, in this ilk, a film which I would say not many of its ilk are around. You know, kind of a unique setup.
Well, you know, it's kind of, there is this in the last, I mean, there have always been fans of it, but like in the last, I feel like 10 to 15 years, there has been this big push to preserve pink films. And I think like a big part of that is just like, these things are better than most of their contemporaries in terms of like So it's funny to joke about like, hey, we kind of watched a porno, but like it's a very good film. It's a softcore porn that's very good. Well, this is not really softcore porn, but pink films are like pink films were kind of vehicles for, you know, young directors back in the day. Like Kiyoshi Kurosawa, one of Japan's greatest living directors, got his start in pink films. And some of the more interesting, like boundary pushing, transgressive, like movies you can see, especially in the V cinema era, which was decades after Horrors of Malformed Men, were all pink films, you know, because like directors were given free reign so long as they put like kind of a nasty sex scene in it. So it's like in the past 15 years, it seems like companies like Arrow and Third Window and Synapse have like really worked to make sure that like a lot of that stuff that Nikatsu was doing and some of the other pink companies, like that stuff is preserved and released and like restored, which is great. I'm sure we've lost a lot of the pink, a lot of pink history at this point, but there is definitely an audience for it, and count me as one of them.
You're outing yourself as a freak and a sicko on air.
My favorite movie I watched last year, top 3, was a pink film for sure. But I didn't tweet it. Maybe we'll talk about it later. You
weren't like, recommend this one. Everybody go check it out. Hit the DL.
The name of the movie is so reprehensible that it's hard to tweet it out from an account where I'm also like, read Game Informer. You know? This
one, you know, having not seen a lot of pink films, this one's got about 100-minute runtime. I think there's probably a lot more meat on the bone, but Ishii's probably at a point in his career where he has that clout and the sort of responsibility afforded to him to be like, you know, make sort of a more down the line adaptation of some of these iconic horror short stories.
I guess I don't know if this is specifically like a pink film or if it just kind of has his stylings of what he was doing in the genre, but it feels dirtier than most other movies.
It's where he made his name. It's probably kind of why he's getting the opportunity afforded to him to make this.
Right.
But I think like this sits firmly in the sort of exploitation era of that style of film, and I think like every individual element in this movie works really well. I think most of the performances are incredible. The art direction, as aforementioned, like the style, costumes, all of the uses of color, and especially the music. You've got some of the sickest opening credits I've ever seen in this movie. It opens with a really cool splash title of like, you know, the collected works of Teruo Ranpo, and then you have some cool close-up shots of spiders crawling on webs with all of the like cast, and this like kind of booming operatic organ score, really just like setting the scene for something kind of freaky to come. And the freakiness does not jump off the bat, but you sort of get there. I also really like the opening line of this film, which I cannot remember verbatim, but it's like, you know, the day started in a very boring gray room.
Yeah. And then I would dispute that room is boring. Because as soon as I said it, I said, why doesn't my day start this way?
In a movie where there's a lot going on, you sort of hop right into it. You're in what can only be described as an insane asylum with some shirtless ladies just running around, screaming, causing all sorts of rabble-rousing. And I think that's what we sit with for like 4 or 5 minutes, basically off the jump before we're ever even introduced to our main character.
Tonally all over the place, too.
Yeah.
You can never tell if, like, our main character's in danger, if he's about to maybe, like, get a little something, if he's having fun, if he's worried about the current... Like, it's a very bizarre scene that is bouncing back and forth through a lot of different emotions, if you will.
So this is a performance by Teruo Ishii playing a character called Hirosuke Hitomi, of many other names. But his, you know, the situation that we find him in, the real troublesome situation, is he's been, you know, consigned to this asylum for reasons kind of unbeknownst to him and us. He's just like, you know what? I kind of got thrown in the slammer, and I don't think I deserved it. But I also can't remember what's going on with my life. The really only thing I have to cling on to is this memory of a very sort of nondescript lullaby and a big warehouse kind of in the middle in the woods nowhere. But I think I'm normal. I think I'm all good here. Like, you know, these people are running around. People are screaming. Everyone's running around with knives. But, you know, my life's not too bad. There's no, like, record scratch, but you're wondering how I ended up here.
The whole movie is kind of a record scratch. I bet you're wondering how I ended up here. What are you talking about?
I love the omniscient narration which persists throughout this entire thing. You get little glimpses into his psyche and his understanding of what's going on, and he's always just so matter of fact about the entire thing. He's just kind of like, oh, that's right. Yeah, I do remember nothing about the first 30 odd years of my life, but that's pretty normal.
It seems like, the way it seems to convey this to the viewer is, I was living my life normally, and then just 1 second I couldn't remember. Like, it's very glossed over why he has amnesia, but it gets us to where we need to go, so I'm not complaining too much. But he's having a blast in jail, as far as I'm concerned.
He's having a blast until someone tries to murk him. They pull up on our boy with a big old knife, but he manages to escape. He kind of hops out a very small window after surviving this assassination attempt, dispatching with his murderer, and then he's immediately on the streets with more antics. He runs across a carnival and sort of has a flirtatious relationship with a young performer there until she is very quickly just murdered right in front of him.
Right. Well, he hears the performer whistling this lullaby that he is one of his only memories he has left. He tracks her down at night. They talk. She says, "Yo, I'm with this circus. Come find me. I'll let you know about the lullaby because there's one other person here who knows about it." So he goes there, and then unceremoniously, before she can be like, "Hey, this is the guy you need to talk to," a knife comes out of nowhere and murders her.
Yeah.
However, since he is right beside her, he is framed for the crime, causing him to run away with only the knowledge of, you need to find this beachside on the Sea of Japan. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Me, being a dummy, not knowing my geography, I Googled the Sea of Japan just to see how big, how much area of bay he would need to look for. A miracle he found it. Gotta be honest. That's about, it appears to be about 400 miles.
He forgot most of his life, but not his geography, just fundamentals. Right. Look, here's one thing that I immediately found pretty funny in this movie. Incredibly dramatic overreaction to this lullaby. It's like the one thing he's got in his memory, but he hears this woman walking down the street, sort of whistling a familiar tune. Maybe we all understand that, but then she starts singing the lyrics of the song, which are subtitled as basically like, "Please, sleepy baby, go to sleep. It's time for sleep." And he's like, "How do you know that song? Like, what the hell? That song that's the one in my head." And the movie's never like, yeah, maybe this is a misunderstanding, but very sort of, I'm just like, she could have just, I don't know, written it herself.
Yeah, maybe. It's like hearing someone sing "Happy Birthday."
Yeah, and he's like,
"How do you know my family heirloom?"
Exactly. Yeah, but it all serves to basically just set up that he's got some mysterious family history, let's say, that he's as unaware of as we are. Once he's framed for this murder, he decides to just up and run, get out of there. And
what else is he gonna do? He just got out of the slammer. He's not going back to jail. Come on.
No,
joke's too funny.
I would do the same thing. He's on a train. He comes across a peculiar newspaper clipping, which just so happens that a man who looks exactly like him has mysteriously turned up dead. And so he decides in the moment, just a spur of the moment thing, like, what if I took over this dead guy's life? And not just like, hey, classic misunderstanding. What if I pretended that there was a resurrection and I came back to life?
Which he decides, because he has also the same scar as the man on his foot, which is a swastika. Granted, different meanings, blah, 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 blah. We all know.
And like the face mole sort of thing, too?
Yeah, he goes to get a massage, and the woman giving the massage is like, the family of the recently deceased, they live on this island. They're kind of the big names around here, the Donald Trumps, if you will, of the Sea of Japan town.
Subtle commentary.
Yeah, the Trump family here. However, the father is off on this mysterious island you can barely see in the Sea of Japan. And conveniently, the woman is near blind. But she touches his face. She's like, "Oh, you look just like him." And he's like, "Well, check this out. I'm going to go lay in a grave for a second." And then enters 2 monks, and we get our Three Stooges SMF scene.
Larry, Curly, and Moe just walk onto the scene. Basically, it's like
It's so funny.
it's like it's a very well done comedic sequence where I start watching and I'm like, do they realize how funny this is? And then immediately it's like, yeah, they're cranking that dial behind the scenes of just up the slapstickness. It's like the guy's falling over. I think they kiss at one point. He like kisses the presumed dead body, the one monk, when he's almost falling down the stairs.
There's a bit of a sodomy joke there,
just
as
like
well.
very light, quick little sodomy joke. 1969, a different time.
Yeah, I mean, nice here, nice joke. What was the reason So he convinces everyone that he has come back from the dead, and they give some like medical diagnosis that I think was something like brief asphyxiation.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he really did just sort of die for a little bit, but he's all good now. It's like he had the common
all
cold.
chill.
Yeah, just like a brief case of death. He was like, sorry guys, got to clock out for a few days. I'm gonna be dead. I'll be right back. Like I promise, I'm gonna get through this. Make me a nice chicken noodle soup, and I'm good.
I guess no one ever second guesses it, which, different era. We didn't know much about science.
Well, they're going to put him in the grave. I think they lay him down in the grave, and then he's like, hold on, like I'm good.
No. Yeah. No. Okay. He lays down the next day in the cemetery, and the monks come across him. I guess his idea was like, in a stupor coming out of the grave, still weak, he might have passed out in the cemetery. But that's how he explains that he's not in his coffin.
Yeah, and this entire time we're getting that good narration I mentioned earlier where he's like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna kind of like finesse this, gonna sneak in there, they're all gonna think I'm this guy, it's gonna be great, my life a movie for real. And then we move into my favorite section, which is sort of the trials and tribulations of his adjusting to this sleuthy double life that he's got going on. So, he now has a wife and a family and all of these responsibilities, and you get those sort of things where it's like you can see the kind of sweat beads coming down his forehead where he's like, oh man, my wife wants me to, smooch her, pay attention to her. The old ball and chain's bothering me.
Well, that's such one of the smart details about this movie is the guy has to learn, like, at one point he realizes the guy he's impersonating is left-handed and he's right-handed, and he's like, well, I can't write with my left hand. So like there's a scene where he needs to sign a document and he he spills something on it.
My favorite scene in the movie, the best thing I think happens in here, that like guys from the nearby fishing village come over and they're like, oh, here's this document, agreement, whatever we need you to sign. And yeah, you get the like intense close-up on his face. He's like, oh, I can't sign this shit. Like, I can't write with my left hand. They're going to know I'm faking it. And so he's like holding the pen there. They come to bring tea into the room, and it's like, it's giving the Death Note scene where he's like, I'll take a potato chip and eat it. He's just like, oh, if I fuck up this document by pouring tea all over it, then I can't, then I won't have, then I get out of making this business deal. So he very comically just flips the tray of tea all over the thing. And then he says like, oh, you know what? You got to go write this whole document by hand again. Sorry, that's a lot of work for you. My bad.
Yeah, I guess they hadn't heard of the fucking printing press by then. It hadn't made its way across the Pacific Ocean.
They're like, we need your John Hancock, buddy. We do.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun moments like that. He gets a newspaper at one point, and his wife's like, "Oh, don't you need your glasses, or are your eyes better?" And he looks at the paper. He's like, I guess they're not," which is funny. And I do like the detail that like he won't have sex with.
Yeah, he does have like some moral backbone where he's just like, "Oh my god."
However,
my wife really wants to make love to me. He's like, "Can't do that."
However, the man he's impersonating, I guess, was having an affair with one of the servants in the house, and I do believe he has sex with her. So I guess he wasn't as worried about that one.
Well, it was a step up, a moral. He says he has to do it to be convincing. This film has a weird relationship with fidelity and the responsibilities of a spouse. Let's say that definitely comes into play towards the end there, in something that maybe hasn't aged the best.
I think it's fine.
It's like,
I have no
all
qualms
good.
with it.
Women be trifling is basically at the end of the day the moral of this film. And like, it's okay if your wife cheats on you. It's okay to establish an island nation where you're creating your own sort of army, basically. I don't know.
Well, maybe cut this one out. Isn't that what Andrew Tate just did?
Kind of. It's also like close to the plot of Metal Gear Solid 5 in some ways.
Wow. Horrors of Malformed Men is one part Metal Gear Solid 5, one part Andrew Tate.
Well,
Combine them all together.
Here's what I was thinking at the end. Maybe man was the true horror all along. That's one of the moral takeaways that I got as well.
Oh shit!
That's right. I said it.
Wow.
Another thing.
Patreon.com/regionfree.
That's not real.
For more heat like that.
Let's talk about another one of my favorite sequences, which is the how do I want to phrase this? Attempted hot tub assassination by rattlesnake.
And then let's talk about the successful assassination of the snake.
I mean, it's a very good. It's a very good scene where you're sort of like, okay, I know what we're doing here. Woman's gonna take a nice steamy bath in a barrel. We've all been there before. She's getting in there. There's some titillating nudity. Pink film's got to hit the quota. Yada yada yada. She's in there. She takes one look down at the floor. Big ass snake, like classic sort of snap zoom. Like, what's that? Whoop. Big snake. Snake hisses directly into frame. Smash cut back to woman just screaming her lungs out. And then the whole staff of the house runs in, and I don't remember what they use. I think it's just like a towel or something, but it's a very dramatic effect where they whack the snake and like his whole head is flat, like a piece of cardboard.
They kill really kill the shit out of this snake. If you're not okay seeing stuff like that, maybe skip this 5-second portion of the movie, because like I forgot, and when it happens, you're like, oh, whoa, because for a while it looks like they're clearly not actually gonna hurt the snake. It's like, okay, whatever, and then the snake,
they whack him,
yeah, it didn't. They had to fly the snake flag at half-mast for a week after that. That was a tragedy in the snake world.
The snake budget got too out of hand. We got to cut costs wherever we can. So then
shouldn't have messed with my boy like that.
I know.
You know? Someone shoot that fucking snake.
They call a very casual meeting where they're like, okay, guys, we know somebody brought this fucking snake in here. Whoever it was, just fess up to it. Like, you're not going to be in trouble. We just sort of need to get to the bottom of this. But that sort of leads to the unearthing of this conspiracy that, like, yeah, hey, wait, someone is trying to cause you harm in this house. Somebody here is up to no good. So we sort of then we're like we're on alert, watching out for any shifty characters, or there are these mysterious letters that start showing up that really kind of unnerve the wife. And then one night, mysteriously, she wakes up in the middle of the night in distress and then tragically expires. And that is sort of the inciting event that moves us into the bonkers second half of this movie. I think it is pretty much like, well, I guess it's like an hour and 40-minute movie. So maybe, is it like the first 40 minutes so far?
It's about half and half. Yeah.
It's pretty close to half and half. But he decides to hop on a boat, go see daddy, fly out to the well, not fly, you don't fly on a boat on out to the island, which is sort of where the really cool cover art of the, I guess it's the reverse half, but this very evocative image of a man sort of with like white ash all over his skin in a big billowy robe doing just some of the coolest choreography by hand and like upper body stuff that I've ever seen, and there's certainly a reason for that, as we are introduced to Tatsumi Hijikata playing our sort of main antagonist here, Mr. Malformed Men himself.
Yeah, did you read any about this dude?
I did. I definitely did, and I want to talk about this because it's one of the coolest things that the movie does, for sure.
Yeah, he's like this actor whose name you just said, but it escapes me, is the creator of the Buto dance art movement. He's like a very important and famous performance artist out of like 60s, 70s, 80s Japan.
Yeah, it was like it's sort of an avant-garde art troupe that was like directly inspired by, you know, the things that transpired in World War II and post-war Japan, but they kind of did these like, you know, very elaborate and evocative performances. And most of the featured players in the background of these scenes who play, you know, the malformed men, and the creations on this island are members of that troupe. And so it definitely like establishes immediately the credibility of some of their otherworldly movements, and really just kind of like creepy. They're sort of, it is very hard to explain if you haven't seen it, but they're sort of just doing these like rhythmic gesticulations, a lot of like the wave, almost snake-like in a way. But the characters are also all done up with pretty neat costumes. Like people have webs over their heads, or sort of look like they're combined with goats on top of all of these other deformities that like were given to them.
When we first arrive on the beach, we see the father, who's, you know, this guy who, the creator of Buto, everything.
Jogoro Komada is the character's name, so we can call him Jogoro.
And we actually see the scene a little earlier in the movie. But
there are flashes of it, because there is some like pretty creative editing in a few moments in this, where you just get like little snippets of his, what do you want to call it, beckoning beach dance, basically. But you get the scene in full when you arrive, and it's, you know, probably the thing you remember from this movie outside of maybe the ending. Waves crashing, men in big robe.
As impressive as it is, like, Buto dancing is horrifying. It is a disturbing art form, kind of by design. So this scene is very memorable for being visually impactful, also just like unsettling watching the way this man dances around. But for a really quick little piece of trivia that just by sheer coincidence I learned the day before my rewatch of this, Buto performance inspired Takeshi Shimizu when he was coming up with the ghosts in the Ju-on films.
Oh,
they are directly
totally
inspired by Buto performances, partly because they're creepy, also because it was kind of a way to get around the lack of a budget there. Just paint the ghosts white and have them move kind of creepy around the room. Just by complete coincidence, I was watching some stuff about the making of Ju-on, and Shimizu talked about Buto, and then the next day I was reading about this movie, and it was like, oh, that's literally the founder of that thing I just learned about.
Yeah, I mean, what I admired most about this movie, probably more so than the story or whatever it is that's happening, is kind of the creative gumbo that it represents, where you have, they're adapting all of these kind of iconic Ranpo stories, or at least the skeleton of one, with a lot of elements paying homage to him. There's an incredible interview with Masahiro Kakefuda, who was like the main writer with Ishii on the Blu-ray, where he talks about kind of his process and how they were inspired to do this adaptation. And the dude just has an incredibly cool attitude. But he was like, we basically read through these stories. We were like, let's take the coolest shit that we can and just like throw it all in there. It's a really neat interview. I highly recommend you watch it. But and then, you know, that combined with the score, the pyrotechnics, the visual effects, and then this, you know, tribe essentially of Buto dancers, which, as you were mentioning, is like meant to be this sort of unnerving art form. It all just really coalesces together. And yeah, a very kind of, you haven't seen many movies like this one for sure.
Yeah, I think like without, I don't want to overstate it too much, but also like when they get to the island, there's about a 5-minute sequence of them just touring the island, and you start to kind of realize the people here behaving and look somewhat as a cross between man and animal. You know, like at one point we get this moment of women swimming through water and they're being fed like fish.
Oh yeah.
It's such a visually arresting kind of sequence of images they're throwing at you that you kind of probably have never seen anything like even though this movie's 50 years old, I think, like, it is such a fascinating sequence of like pure creativity, but also just like in an alarming way, where they're clearly trying to disturb or shock you with what they're showing you, but in a way where it's like, this is technically also fucking impressive.
Yeah, I've obviously not read the original short story and don't know the exact timeline, but like the Island of Dr. Moreau is sort of a clear inspiration or contemporary to point to, as well as something like The Dangerous Game, which is sort of just like, hey, you're going to be lured into this kind of fantastical island where things are revealed to be maybe not as on the up and up as we thought they were.
Right.
But that's all brought to life again with great costumes. Really, just like this movie, as difficult as it was perhaps to sort of think about or parse through some of that stuff at times, was never not compelling to look at.
And it only gets more disturbing from here, luckily for us.
Yeah, I sort of forget the pace in which it's revealed just how bad things are here, but it's right there as soon as you get there. Clearly not great. There's a lot of mysterious figures walking around, people who definitely have had some experiments done to them. I think you slowly sort of start to get that Jogoro is responsible maybe for some of this experimentation. And then there's a very funny sequence where kind of he does his bad guy reveal and pulls out what can only be described as the world's smallest gun. And he's like, listen up, I'm gonna tell you how things are. It's like it looks kind of like a little water pistol.
Yeah, before we get to that point, we learn our main character's role in all this. He's obviously the estranged son of the man running this island. The man
is the son revealed that early? Because I think, yeah,
It's before the sequence in the cave where we learn the entire backstory.
Well, that's 30 minutes of the end of the movie, basically.
Right. we learn that our main character here is the estranged son of this man who's running this island of malformed men. And the man he's assumed the identity of is actually his brother. As a child, his father shipped him off to Tokyo in the hopes that he would become a surgeon and would join him back on this island and perform his surgeries for him. His goal basically is he is bringing people, women, children, whatever the case might be, and he's deforming them. He's kind of finding this middle ground between man and animal and creating this island where people live effectively in these primal states. They're kind of brought back to, what we might have been when man first started evolving.
It's real ego trip stuff. He's playing God to a T.
Exactly. So he needs a surgeon here to kind of create these beasts for him. And obviously his son is like, nah, I'm good. And then he's like, well, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, okay, I'll help you, but can I help this woman out that's not a Siamese twin, but you've sewed to someone?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's fine. Okay. But also I might still kill you. And it's like, okay, not the strongest writing in the movie going on right here, but that's fine. And then he performs surgery.
Yeah, the mix of exposition dumps and character motivations, let's call it, that starts happening towards this back half is really just like you feel the writerly hand being like, okay, and then we want this to happen, and then there's going to be this cool sequence, where he's like using his surgical skills and sort of realizing maybe what that part of his backstory might be. A lot still being sort of hinted at or kept mysterious. Like you're getting more of that narration where he's just kind of like, oh, I am good at this. Maybe this is who I was in a past life, essentially. Is this before or after the kind of fireworks dance sequence? I'm trying to remember. Like, is that part of what we see up top, or is that as they move through the facility more? Because, he does sort of... he gets used to being on the island and is kind of playing around with the idea of like, well, let's hear him out. Let's see what's going on here. One of the coolest images in the movie, or sort of montages rather, is this well edited dance sequence where these women are painted silver, kind of look like birds, and they have fireworks attached to their body, and there's just very cool cross-cutting montage of these elaborate flame schemes, and they're dancing with these big orange sheets. Doesn't serve an explicit plot purpose. It's kind of just okay, we're gonna check this out for a little bit, but it's very cool. It looks awesome.
That's a lot of it's a lot of 10 minutes of people telling you the story they didn't tell you for the first half of the movie, truncated by some really awesome dance moments.
Or just hey, what's this over here? Take a look over there. Isn't that cool? And I'm like, it is cool. What's going on?
Yeah, it also seems like a lot of the makeup design is done either with putty or cake. Did you notice this? At one point, someone's face is supposed to look malformed, and it literally just looks like they've put cake all over them.
Yeah, there's a few there are some characters that are basically meant to just be carnival attractions, sort of, where it's this one's gonna sit in a cage or be out here doing this thing and they don't get a ton to do. And then there are a few guys that are basically like lackeys. And they kind of just have like, definitely looks like they just rubbed some mud or cake or ash on their face. Like there's the one guy I'm remembering who I don't know his character name, but he kind of just does have, kind of looks like he took a big piece of chocolate cake, smashed it on his forehead, and then does like bug eyes basically, and uses his teeth to talk a lot. But he's one of our primary troublemakers for sure.
So at a point that is never really built up to, the movie just decides, I think it's time to end this piece.
It's like you're probably wondering what's going on, and I'm like, where'd you get that?
The father says, so you want to go see your mom now?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, he's like, yeah, I guess we're about at our runtime on this movie. We should go figure out what this movie was about. And then, holy shit, it goes off the rails. AJ, I'm buckling up, buddy. Tell him about it.
Maybe the most, dramatic thing that's ever happened in a cave. He's like, here's your mom. She's tied up to the wall. That's all cool. She's emaciated. She's been down here for a very long time. I think they do spell it out. He's like, I shipped you and your brother out when you were 3 years old. She's been down here for like 30 years, basically. I did, unfortunately, catch her. Well, hold on. Actually, he's like, hey, my life was great. I was engaged to a beautiful woman. Everything was going great for me. These children were coming, bringing me gifts, being like, nice wife, brother. Amazing.
Everyone was stoked for him because he was ugly as sin. He was bagged a hottie.
Yeah, it is sort of key to the theme of the movie, basically, is he was like, he did have a deformity himself. I think his hands are sort of malformed, as the title spells out there. And so he's, from this line of nobility. I think he says at one point she was like the most beautiful woman in Japan, China, and India combined. Yeah. And so they end up engaged to each other. But as soon as they get married, he's like, she didn't want to be seen in public with me. I wasn't allowed to hang out. We weren't allowed to be seen together. I wasn't getting any. And then he's like, she would wake up in the middle of the night and I wouldn't know where she goes. That was weird. So one night I follow her. Turns out she was porking her cousin. That was a bummer. So I had to kidnap them and tie them up in a cave on my island nation where I was doing surgery to create the perfect society, as one does. Thing that's always happening.
Game journalists, if any of y'all are listening, believe it or not, incest is a plot point. Did not begin with 12 minutes. It's been a plot point for hundreds of years. And here it is in Horrors of Malformed Men, which goes full incest for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it's like
everyone is having sex with their family.
Some of them
crazy.
Some of them unwittingly, to be fair. The dad does pull the like, the sort of mistress that you had, that was also your cousin, or no, that's his sister, right? Like, sort of distantly. But I do love where he's like, yeah, it sucked that my wife was cheating on me, so I tied them up together. There's his skeleton over there. And then you get kind of a flashback within a flashback, which is another one of the most visually compelling moments in this movie, where he's like, he did, get infected with crabs, and then she ate, not like, not the STI, like actual seaside crabs started living in his body, and she did eat them, and now all of his bones have been plucked clean.
Which means she was down there committing cannibalism by way of seafood on her cousin lover.
Look,
it's an incredibly dark moment. There's no way you can be like, it's dark on so many levels, and it never stops adding new layers of just bleakness to it.
Being chained to your dying cousin lover and being forced to eat, well, that's a bad thing in and of itself. Then being forced to eat him to sustain yourself, also not great.
Not even that. She's eating the crabs that are eating him.
Yeah.
Then eating him by association.
There's like just little flakes. Yeah. Well, I would say that having the crabs there as a nice little snack is sort of a cherry on top of a bad situation. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and so I'm like, look, at least, crabs don't taste horrible. So they were alive. That's a bummer.
But she was like eating them raw, alive.
She was like picking up the moving crabs and stuffing them in her mouth. Look, like we said, not a great situation. I would not like to wake myself up tomorrow in a cave like this.
Right.
Then, kind of out of nowhere, our intrepid detective shows up, and he's like, look, this movie's sort of confusing. there was a murder mystery. We kind of forgot about that to get back to this like fucked up Professor X situation with your dad and your cousin lover and your sister and all this sort of stuff. He's like, he's like, I'm good. I got this. The sort of assistant housekeeper that they've brought along with them. He's like, buddy, your shit is fucked up. I know it was you. You're not as slick as you think. We then, I think for the third time in maybe 10 minutes, get another like full narrated flashback sequence, which this is what I do like. It's a bit ridiculous in kind of its premise and presentation, but I do like how every time they flash back to a sort of different story that someone's telling, the entire thing is in like a different colored vignette. So like the entire screen is sort of shot through this green filter, or this part's red. I think there was like a sepia toned one. But here we get, basically, he lays out like the plot of the movie as we've watched, or the events of it happening in the house, rather, kind of what was actually going on. And so basically, yeah, some of the housekeepers were scheming to kind of assume the fortune once this last heir passed away. And probably like, I don't know if it's a good idea, but one of the funniest murder plots I've ever seen. They get in the rafters above his bed where he's sleeping at night. This is, of course, you'll remember when his wife mysteriously wakes up in the middle of the night screaming and then immediately dies. This guy gently sort of drops a little string down from up top on the rafters. And then he's like, okay, this is going to go great. I'm just going to take this little bottle of poison I've got here, pour it right down this string into his mouth, and it's going to be the cleanest murder anyone's ever seen. Homeboy rolls over, snores in his sleep, and his wife catches a stray, and that's how she died. So this dude's got to get it. He's no good. Detective's like, I figured all this out.
This is either like a thing people used to do, or a direct homage to You Only Live Twice, I believe. Because they do that in that movie as well by lowering the string. I wonder if it's
like a common murder plot.
Yeah, I wonder, because it is like weirdly specific that you would like drip poison down a string into someone's mouth. It has showed up in a movie that came out before this. I don't know if it was like a common tactic.
What'd you type into Google to find that? String murder?
Dropping poison on string.
Hey, Blake, I think somebody's knocking at your door. Is that the FBI?
Pizza Hut?
Yeah. Not the worst idea, I guess. It doesn't quite work. Kind of doesn't go the way he had planned it.
You just gotta hope they don't roll over like at the moment you do it, but it's kind of clever.
So at this point in the movie, we've gone through, I mean, gosh, how long is it? Probably 20 solid minutes of like backstory, lore explanation via flashback. And so there are a lot of balls up in the air that we're juggling, but basically it's like all of our key players and their motivations have essentially been spelled out. His dad wants him to sort of be the house surgeon on this island to create the way he describes it was like it was a very compelling scene in the movie. Kind of is just sort of like, look, I want to make these malformed men to like, speak something about the greater human condition, kind of explore what our next evolution might be like, and I want to be in charge of it. So again, he's ego tripping. What sort of happens at the end of this move? Like, how does it all go sour?
Yeah, I mean, so they chase the father out of the cave. We learn that the father has rigged the entire island with explosives. He says he's going to, if our detective Goro Akechi comes any closer, he's going to turn this island into a sea of fire. And then when you know it, his ex-wife, that's also his love. And then for some reason, they're both dying now. Well, I understand why she's dying, but he also appears to be dying, which I guess is just narratively convenient. What's more fascinating to me than that moment is our main character and his new cousin lover, where they quickly write a note to Akechi. They say, "Here you go, bud." He reads it and he says, "Hey, we just learned we were committing incest. That's pretty crazy, but like we're kind of chill with it. So we're gonna go strap ourselves to some fireworks and launch ourselves into the air. And
As
then,
one would do.
I do believe the greatest moment in motion picture history occurs.
We'll get there. One thing I
Okay.
want to rewind to a little bit, because this one stuck out. As the bad guy and his lover are sort of embracing each other in their dying throes on the beach, she's like, "Look, sorry I cheated on you. I totally understand why you would want to become, god of an island of
Right.
malformed men." That's a kind of common thing that guys do when they're going through a tough time. Like, obvious coping mechanism. This is my fault. Yeah, like
I believe it's the plot of at least 2 Far Cry games.
classic woman L. I'm gonna hold this one. Let's die together.
Yeah.
And then yes, it's very artfully done in the way that it's expressed. The entire island and everyone on it explodes into a mass of limbs and fireworks. And
No, I think it's just the 2.
is it? There was like more.
I think so.
Because
I think it's just the 2, and they keep yelling "Mom,"
yeah.
and then the movie ends. I think it's just those 2. I think they're the only ones who explode by the end of this film.
Any like plot construction immediately kind of disappears. You just start getting these big flashes, and then it's like, here's an arm. I think there's 2 like hands holding one another. And,
Yeah.
like, a leg. You see some heads. So bodies being blown apart. It probably makes more sense that it's just those 2. But they're screaming mother. The score, beautiful score, kicks in again, just like humming, thrumming, very great. And then you get a really cool the end splash screen, and you're like, normal movie. Really understood everything that happened there.
Yeah.
Everything made sense. It was a
Wrapped up
great time.
succinctly.
Yep.
What'd you think overall, AJ?
An incredible experience to watch it. I think you might be picking up that I had a hard time following the plot at times, and
Sure.
definitely was not helped by people showing up out of nowhere and being like, give me 15, let me clear this up. But like, again, I was so impressed by it visually and aesthetically, just knowing when it came out and kind of seeing how that style has, like, I want to say evolved over time, but also like, not a lot of stuff looks this good anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love this movie. I watched it for the first time about a year ago, I'd say. And Teruo Ishii is like a director I wanted to get into really badly, and then I watched this movie and was like, wow, he's fantastic. And then have not gotten around to any of his other films, unfortunately. But going back to it, I was like, it obviously had lost a little bit of impact. I think the first time you watch this movie and you're wrestling with this mystery, you were like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
It lost a bit of its impact on the second time, which is a bit of a letdown. But that back half just is so visually compelling that it picked me back up in the last 40 minutes of this movie.
It's not like I was ever looking at my watch at this movie being like, slog, not having a good time. Like, I had a great time with this movie, and everything that happens in it, as little or as much as I understood.
I double featured this last night with the first episode of The Last of Us, and let me tell you, this one, they're about the same in length, and Horrors of Malformed Men flew by compared to that fucking snore
Got
fest.
a lot of
Christ.
great makeup in it as well.
So people can watch it if they're listening to this, they haven't seen it. It's on the Arrow player.
Arrow player, and the Blu-ray is really great. Like,
Yeah,
I
Arrow-
don't know how good it looks on streaming, but the transfer is like, I was like really just impressed with how good this movie looked.
Yeah. Arrow's release is also on things like Amazon and Apple, so it's very accessible.
Yeah, like an incredible restoration.
Before we close out, you got any movie recommendations based on this one? I think I got a couple.
One that it evoked for me is a little film called Hanzo the Razor, which is sort of a similar era of exploitation. That one is a bit more explicitly a sex comedy. Maybe we'll talk about it on this pod one day. It would be a good candidate. But essentially the layup for that one is sort of, murder mystery. Guy's kind of a cop who's trying to get to the bottom of something going on in this mysterious village. And his claim to fame is his interrogation tactic, where he uses his very large penis to give women sex so good that they tell him everything they know about crimes.
I think, believe it or not, I think that's also a big plot point in the real life of Jake Adelstein in Tokyo Vice. I'm sure there's a part of that book where he's like, "Yeah,
look, I'm
just
so
my
good."
swords.
Yeah.
I got a couple. One is, you know what? Not a hard to find movie, a popular one. Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, I mean, with the animal stuff and the island stuff, especially, I was kind of a similar tone. Like, it'd make a good queasy double feature, basically.
Yeah, what was it? 1980 Italian cannibal film. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably know it and maybe have seen it.
If you saw what happened to the snake in this movie and you were like, look, I don't think they were mean enough to that animal, and I would like them to do more to a nicer looking animal, you'll love Cannibal Holocaust.
My second one is a definite pink film that I love. God, when is it from? It's not the same era at all. Let me look it up. This is from 1996, Splatter Naked Blood by Hisayasu Sato. Narratively, stylistically, completely different films, but if you just want to kind of know more about maybe where the world that this movie came from, Splatter Naked Blood is a fantastic, fantastic pink film that is very sexy and very gory. It is about a kid whose father was a doctor who was looking into how maybe he can create a drug that stops pain, but he dies, and so his son picks it up and he creates this drug and he wants to test it. So he tests it on these 3 unwitting women, but the drug is not ready. The clinical trial goes wrong, and the women they form these weird reactions to it where they seem to love pain rather than not feeling it. And I'll say it manifests in a bunch of different ways. It is very, very gory. In fact, one scene, it is the movie is notorious for one scene which a lot of people cannot stomach what happens. It's a bit of auto cannibalism. But it's like an hour long because most of those pink films were mandated they had to be an hour long, and it's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube.
Surprised to hear that.
I totally recommend it. It has Sadao. Oh God, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Well, I'll tell you some that I added to my own watch list here. Is I was again so just captivated by the interview with Masahiro Kakafuda that I added I was just pulling up any movies that he'd written and I want to watch those. So he's responsible for Sister Street Fighter and Sex and Fury, which are definitely similar. But the one that caught my eye the most is School of the Holy Beast, also known as The Transgressor. Has an incredible poster, kind of one of those non-violent sex comedies. I don't mean none N-O-N-E, I mean none N-U-N.
Right.
So, like, very cool poster. I'm definitely going to track that one down.
We should watch Splatter Naked Blood for this show.
Look, you sold me.
Here's the thing. Hisayasu Sato is like one of the directors specifically that was working in pink films just because people would give him money to make movies. And so he would make these insanely interesting movies, but they would just have one sex scene kind of tacked on. And then the rest of it would just be like his weirdo thing he was making. It's so cool. We should do a pink series.
Kind of like Wild Things, right?
I mean...
Yeah, kind of.
Maybe.
Next week, we will be talking about a film not too old, World of Kaneko, which is one Blake's been hyping up to me as well.
Oh my God, y'all, you're not ready for World of Kaneko. I feel like under talked about movie. AJ, this is gonna melt your brain.
Yeah, and I believe this is one that's streaming on Hulu, at least at the time of recording. So, if you want to watch along and do your homework, that's what we'll be talking about next week. But until then, thanks for listening. We didn't do any plugs at the end of the last episode. I don't know. Follow me on Letterboxd and Twitter. I'm at Radmir. Blake, do you want people to find you on the internet?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Radmir.
Okay. Good night, and thanks for listening. Stay malformed, men.
の物語を